Legend of Total War here, and today I'm doing another tier list using Tier Maker, this time revisiting the fun tier list where I'm going to be ranking all 100 factions in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires based on how fun I personally think they are. Now I have done a tier list like this before, but it was nearly 2 years ago and a lot has changed since then. But I'll be bringing that tier list up to see how different things are going to be with some of these factions compared to what I thought nearly 2 years ago. And of course, there's an additional 8 factions added into the game since then. But before we get into the tier list, I do need to let you guys know that this video here is sponsored by Manscaped. You guys know I've been with Manscaped for ages. Love the products, love working with them. The White Hot Edition Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is the all-purpose electric razor you know and love. From shaving your head to your sack, the lawnmower gets the job done. I've used this razor myself to do just that, and I've never once cut myself. It's easy to use, easy to charge, easy to clean, and easy to replace the razor blade. I've been using Manscaped products for years, and I've thrown out all of my other electric razors. Check out the link in the description or pinned comment and get 15% off the special edition of the Lawnmower 5.0. Big thanks to Manscaped, as always, for sponsoring this video. Okay, with that being said, let's get into the tier list itself. So, bringing up the previous tier list, to use as a point of comparison, these are the factions that I considered as of October 25th, October 25th, 2023, so nearly 2 years ago, as being like the factions that I would recommend to play as like your first campaign or something that would be the most fun, based on what I personally enjoy in the campaign. Now, the things that I enjoy in a campaign is a decent amount of challenge, but a good amount of tools with which to overcome those challenges. I don't like campaigns where you're hamstrung and it's just challenging for the sake of challenging. I like to be able to do a lot in any given turn, which I think is the case with pretty much all of these factions here, that they, at least at the time, had a lot of options to do every single turn. Whereas factions down here, the reasons why I put them in D tier is because like I found myself doing very little each turn, and I don't like being passive. So even though some of them are challenging and some of them are not so challenging, I just didn't like the momentum of those particular campaigns. So we'll see which ones change. Will some of the ones in S tier be ranked down? Will some of the ones in D tier end up getting a higher rank? So let's go through it. Starting with the Beast, we're going to do things in the exact same order as last time, apart from the additional lords that have been added. So there have been 8 new factions added since then. Once again, there is, of course, 2 factions represented for Sylvania due to Vlad and Isabella. I actually have a little bit of a change of opinion on that. It's not that big of a deal, but we'll get to it later. All right, starting with the Beastmen, I don't really have any changes of opinions with them. So I still consider Taurox to be an S tier faction to play. Khazrak the One-Eye A tier, and Malagor and Morgur at B tier. They've had some additional units added to them, which is great. They get to get some benefit out of every DLC that's happened so far, namely from the Chaos side of things, obviously. But I don't think that on its own is enough to give them a higher rank. It definitely makes the campaigns like slightly better, but not enough to get a whole other rank. Reason why Taurox gets the S tier, obviously he's got a really powerful faction mechanic that I really enjoy, whereas the others don't so much have those unique faction mechanics. And the reason why Khazrak gets a bit higher than the others, same reason as before, is that his faction mechanic of like getting a 15% extra boost to ambush success chance, I just find synergizes a lot better with the Beastmen. I do like to ambush constantly, and Khazrak is just better at it. As for their star positions, they're all fine. Like being in B tier, I don't think makes them bad campaigns. I still enjoy all of them, but the thing is with the Beastmen, and I think this is really important, is when you play any of the Beastmen, you kind of get to play all of them, since confederations are super easy with the Beastmen. So I just pick the one with the most interesting star position or faction mechanic, and then I just get the others fairly early on, because Dread's just not that difficult to get. Okay, moving on to Bretonnia. I think my position on Bretonnia has actually shifted a fair bit. Let's bring up the previous tier list again and have a quick look at where I put. Yeah, they're all in the same position there for the Beastmen, but having a look at where I put Bretonnia last time, I put Carcassonne at A, and then the others at B tier. And I think, there's Bordelot there at C tier. So things are going to change a fair bit for Bretonnia, because in my opinion, they are less fun than they used to be, especially comparing them to Warhammer 2. I'd actually go so far as to put Bordelot in D tier, because the very first opponent that you go up against now is Skulltaker, and A faction that basically hasn't had an update in ages, going up against one of the most powerful factions in the game straight away. It's just a really bad matchup. This is not a campaign that I would recommend for people. Avoid this one for a while. Unless you're really looking for a painful, challenging campaign, by all means, play as Albrecht de Bordelot, but I don't think most people are going to find this fun, and I personally don't find it fun either. Apart from the fact that Bretonnia itself has really degraded and fallen off a fair bit over the past few years, largely due to bad updates that just have sort of weakened them and not really updated them in line with many other factions. I think that Bretonnia is really sort of just not really that fun anymore. So all the other factions basically are all getting knocked down a tier as well. So Carcassonne, I don't feel is A tier anymore, putting it B tier, and both Khorne and Repance both going down to C tier. I feel like Bretonnia is just boring now, so that's why I'm putting them down a rank. Even though they themselves haven't had a huge amount of update, even though the prophetesses can now get, well, the damsels can now get vows, I don't feel like that makes any real difference to their gameplay, and it's all really about them just falling behind everyone else. They desperately need a bit of a rework. I don't think there's going to be any more content added for them, either legendary lords or units. So it just depends, in my opinion, based on whether to get like a free rework and an update, which I doubt they'll get at this stage. Okay, so then moving on to Chaos Dwarfs. I don't think anything's like changed a hell of a lot for the Chaos Dwarfs. My opinions on them have mostly remained the same, in that I really enjoy playing as Drazoath the Ashen. I'm going to put him at S tier, and I'm going to put the other two at A tier, because when you play as one Chaos Dwarf, you're kind of able to play as all of them, because it's not too difficult to get a Confederation just because of their Tower of Tsar mechanic. And I just like the Legion of Asgore's start position and faction stat bonuses, I guess, a little bit better than the others. Some people will like the others better, and that's fine. I really do find them kind of interchangeable based on personal preferences. But the Chaos Dwarves are still in a good place, where they were October 25, 2023. Okay, as for the Demons of Chaos, well, he's had some more units added to him thanks to the DLC. He's got some more regiments of renown, but is damned Daniel the Demon Prince any better? Any more fun than he was before? No, not in my opinion. So remains in D tier. Probably going to be a forgotten faction. Really wasted opportunity with the Demon Prince, because the idea of him is great, but the implementation of him is absolute dog shit. And, 3 years on of Total War Warhammer 3, he just remains basically like the Realms of Chaos inside of Immortal Empires, completely abandoned. Okay, moving on to the Dark Elves. Now, the Dark Elves haven't had any substantial updates since 2023. However, I don't feel as bad about them as I did back then. Probably because I was underranking them before, largely due to playing them when they really sucked. When they were first implemented. But they've had a few updates, which I think had still applied even back then, but I still had like a sour taste in my mouth about them back then. But I've since played them a little bit more, and my opinion has softened on them a fair bit. So of these factions, I still think that Lokir Felheart is the most fun, and I would put him at A tier. I definitely don't think he's worthy of S tier. I think I put Nagarond and Hargoneth at D tier, but I no longer would put them at D tier. Now they've been upgraded to C tier, so they go there. And I think the other three belong at B tier, personally. So that's my thoughts on the Dark Elves. If we compare that to where I previously put them, so Lokir Felheart was at A tier, so he remains the same. I still don't think he's worthy of S tier, almost, but not quite. But yeah, I put Nagarond and Hargoneth at D tier, so they went up to C tier. And he got upgraded to B tier, and they're remaining at B tier. Although I do think that they're a bit more enjoyable than they were before, not worthy of A tier. Okay, so now we move on to Dwarves, where we're actually going to see some significant changes, because previously, this was before the Thrones of Decay update. Again, I'll just bring up that other tier list and where I ranked them before. Obviously, Malachi wasn't available back then, but where was like so Thorek was the highest ranked one at A tier, and I was ranking Clan Angren at C tier. And where are the others? Okay, we got... Yeah, the rest were at B tier. So where would I put them now? I love the dwarf rework that they added into Thrones of Decay. So I'd say that Malachi Makason, S tier. This is a campaign that I've played multiple times and will probably play again when the update comes through at the end of this week, which will probably come out after this video, because usually this goes out a couple of days after I record it. But it's due this week. So I'm recording this on a Monday. I think the update will come out on a Friday. That's what I think, but I'm not entirely sure. Because I think the dwarves are going to benefit from the item rework. Well, not rework. Yeah, the item update, I guess, due to their forge mechanic. Anyway, I already explained this in the blog update. But I do think the dwarves are going to be more fun after that, which is why I'm intending to go back in and just in my own time play another campaign of the dwarves. Who knows, I might make it a premiere video. We'll see. So, S tier for him. As for Thorek, I do want to stipulate that I do think that Malachi's campaign is more interesting than Thorek's, but Thorek, in my opinion, is still an S tier campaign. These are both in really good shape. All the dwarf update stuff that they added in with Thrones of Decay were just exactly what I wanted to see. With the Grudge Settler units, with the Age of Reckoning, and the Deeps, along with various other reworks, they really hit the nail on the head with the dwarf rework. It's absolutely fantastic. This went from a race that I've previously, for the entirety of Total War Warhammer, so Warhammer 1 and 2 and somewhat of 3, I've been meh or disliking of, and now they're actually one of my favorite races to play, just like it was like with the Beastmen. Because I hated the Beastmen for absolutely ages. Beastmen rework comes in, and now I love playing as them. Same thing for the dwarf. So that's when you know you've got a good... Well, at least as far as I'm concerned, a good dwarf rework there. As for the others, so I think they're pretty much all A tier. So I think I put Clan Angren in C tier before because it was kind of a painful campaign. But due to the rework, I kind of think that challenge that they have to begin with, it's more fun to deal with now because you've got that Age of Reckoning mechanic. It complements his difficult start position because the more enemies you go up against, the more grudges you settle, making it easier to confederate the others and also getting your Age of Reckoning sorted. And so it sort of mitigated his initial just massive problem of having plus 50% upkeep costs. Now that's fine just because more enemies is actually a good thing for the dwarves. So all of them are going to be at A tier. I think that is a massive improvement on what I ranked them previously. You know, some of them have gained 2 ranks up of what I had previously. I can't praise the dwarf rework enough. I absolutely love it. No race is ever going to get all of their factions in S tier, but it's pretty good right there. Okay, so then we move on to the Empire. Empire also had a bit of a rework. Wasn't like as fond of the Empire rework as I was of the Dwarf one, but it was still pretty good. So again, having a quick look at how I ranked them. Obviously, there's a new additional lord added to the Empire with Elspeth von Draken. So the first Empire faction was actually the Cult of Sigmar at A tier. Then, let's see here. Where did I put? There's the Hunts Marshal Expedition. And look at this. I put Balthazar Gelt and Reichland at C tier. That's definitely going to change now. So, in terms of which faction I think is the most fun, I actually think it's Balthazar Gelt. He's going into S tier. I love this fucking campaign so much now. So I actually think it's the most fun out of all of the Empire factions. Even though he's not a DLC faction, he's got essentially his own DLC mechanic, and I think it's the most fun out of all of them. Then another one that goes into S tier is Elspeth's campaign. Her faction mechanic, while I do really enjoy it, I do think that Gelt sort of appeals to me a little bit more. I really enjoy playing as Elspeth as well. And these two here are sort of similar and complementary playstyles as well, because you've got sort of your magic focus there with the heroes and your College of Magic thing upgrade, which I really think that particular mechanic should be handed over to Teclis. We'll see what happens to that if they get an update with the next DLC. And then you've got sort of like a gunpowder focus and I guess teleport focus as well with Elspeth campaign. Overall, really enjoy both of these campaigns. S tier for both of them. Now, I think I put Reichland at C tier. Now, while I think that Reichland got a pretty big boost in enjoyability with their with its update. I don't think it's worthy of S tier because a lot of the faction mechanics that he got with his rework kind of are similar to Tzeentch's, which it's fine, but they're just kind of like cheat codes, which they're just not that interesting to use compared to other more active mechanics. So I'm going to put him at A tier, which I think is still a pretty good position. He's jumped up 2 places as well. Now, as for the Cult of Sigmar, also I think it's an A tier campaign, although the Cult of Sigmar didn't really get any significant update with the rework. It was really a case of, because they just got their original mechanic, well, when they were added into Total Warhammer 3, and then whatever additional units were added, of course, with the update, and also, of course, if they end up going back to going back to the Empire, they of course can make use of Imperial Authority, which I think is now kind of a lighter touch than it was before. And then the Hunts Marshal Expedition, I don't feel as good about this one as I did previously, because again, not a fantastic campaign to begin with, and with the addition of Skulltaker in the area, I think it lowers the enjoyment significantly, because this faction is not really ideal for dealing with Skulltaker, and he's very close to you right off the get-go. So I don't think it's going to go into D tier. I'm going to put it at C tier. So this one's actually, I think, gone down a tier. Hunts Marshal Expedition kind of needed a bit more of an update on their personal faction mechanic, which in my opinion is got some good parts to it and also some bad parts to it. So a bit more of an update I think is needed for Marcus Wolfhard. But overall, I think that the Empire is in much better shape, and I think Gelt got the lion's share of the benefits. Also, he got a new start position as well. He used to start off at Solent, and now he's in Cathay, and and you can still go back to the Empire as well. So much benefits for the Golden Order there. Okay, now moving on to Grand Cathay. I don't think that much has really changed for Grand Cathay since I last did this tier list. So I think they're pretty much going to go in the same position. The Yuan Bo, I'm pretty sure I put him in S tier. Let me just confirm that. I'm still putting him in S tier because it's the campaign I find most enjoyable. Let me just double check here. So, okay, I didn't put him in S tier. I put him in A tier. Well, I reckon over the course of the past year and nearly 2 years, I have played quite a few Yuan Bo campaigns. So I'm going to put him in S tier now, even though nothing's changed for him. And he still would have to deal with the Skulltaker. So, got to take that into consideration as well. Maybe still best left at A tier. Maybe if Skulltaker wasn't so close, I'd put him at S tier. But yeah, he does have to deal with that, along with many other problems. And again, this isn't a difficulty problem. It's more like a logistical issue for him. Because he's definitely powerful enough to handle it. But yeah, I think he's just right on the cusp of reaching S tier there. As for the other two, still just feel about the same about them. Even though there's been like a couple of new units added, I don't think Cathay is really in any better of a spot. So I'm going to put them both at B tier. I'm assuming that that's the same place I put them in before. Yeah, it is at B tier. So just not much has changed for Cathay. Like a little bit here and there, but just not enough for them to move ranking positions. Okay, now Greenskins. This one's going to be a bit of a weird one, probably a bit of a divisive opinion, because I don't like Greenskins as much as I used to. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that now one of my least favorite factions. And of course, they've had a DLC with Gorbad Ironclaw. So I really don't like Gorbad Ironclaw. I didn't enjoy his campaign one bit. I've already sort of gone through what I liked and mostly what I disliked about him in his campaign review. But just a bit of a summary, I don't like his faction mechanic of tactics that aren't really tactics, they're just like stat boosts. I think that they encourage like stupid armies at the beginning stage of the campaign, and then at the later stage of the campaign encourage doom stacks, because it seems like most of the best of the tactics just give massive boosts to like one type of unit. And so I think it was extremely poorly implemented. And also just getting Grimgor's old start position of Black Crag I just thought was incredibly fucking lazy. Because when I played as Gorbad Ironclaw, it felt like I was playing Grimgor Ironhide in Warhammer 2. And I never thought that was the greatest campaign at that time either. So I'm putting him at C tier. I think that was a bit of a miss. Although I do think that a lot of people do really enjoy Gorbad, but it really didn't resonate with me whatsoever. And I think that the Greenskin update, which was a pretty light touch, but overall really soured my opinion of the Greenskins entirely. So I think I put Grom the Paunch at A tier, but now that Grom the Paunch's unique mechanic isn't really so unique, every time I play him now, it feels like it's overdone, and so I actually don't enjoy Grom the Paunch as much as I used to. So I'm going to put him at B tier now, even though he used to be at A tier. As for Wurzag, he's had a change in start position, which I really don't care for at all. So I'm putting him at C tier. I don't think his start position is particularly interesting now. Whereas previously being at Galbaraz, I thought that was a better start position for him. But I understand why they moved him. Otherwise, that area was too concentrated with Greenskin Legendary Lords, especially for the Dwarfs. So, I don't know. I felt like for me personally, the Greenskins they've really gone downhill. I don't like the changes that they've made for him. I liked him better at Galbaraz. I liked the Dwarfs as an earlier. I guess that's the big thing here as well with Gorbad. It's because I had played a fair bit of Wurzag. It just felt like the exact same thing, except with shitter armies. Because at least with Wurzag, you've got Savage Orcs right from the get-go. And Gorbad doesn't get that. Instead, he's got his tactics, which suck at the early stage of the campaign. So I just feel like that whole area has been made less fun with the deal. So that's for me personally. Obviously, some people are going to disagree, and that's totally fine. But yeah, I personally do not like the decisions made for it. From a lore perspective, I guess it makes sense to put Gorbad there because he's supposed to be going through Blackfire Pass. I get that, but this is not a lore-friendly tier list. It's about fun, and I think they fucked up with Gorbad. It's just not fun, in my opinion. Okay, so then moving on to Azag. I don't really have any opinion about Azag. I just put him in B tier. He's fine, I guess. As for Grimgor, nothing really changed with him, even with the rework of update, I guess. He gets a few additional units that I don't really feel much need to recruit. Obviously, there's a new variant of Black Orc, but having different colors of Black Orc doesn't really make much of a difference to me. So, I don't know, he maybe benefits from it a little bit, but as far as I'm concerned, it's still B tier. And as for Crooked Moon, I'd also put that at B tier. I just don't think it's particularly interesting, that particular campaign. Yeah, like B tier is not bad, but it's not great either. So I think a lot of just a little bit of a downgrade, because I think Wurzag was at B tier before, and now put him at C tier. I really don't like the changes that they made to him with that. But, that's just a personal thing, and you don't have to like everything that they do. After what happened with the Dwarfs and the Empire rework, I'm fine with it, the Greenskins going. They've never been one of my top tier factions anyway, so I could also just be tired of them. I don't know. But whenever I play Greenskins now, I just think, I fucking hate these guys. So, yeah, just not super fond of them now. Okay, now moving on to High Elves. So, not much has changed for the High Elves, apart from just like other enemies in the area that they might end up fighting. But they are likely to get some updates soon. I mean, it hasn't been announced as of yet what the next Legendary Lord for the next DLC is, but I'm pretty sure it's Sea Lord Azelin. So I imagine there would be something of a faction rework for them. That being said, I'm not going to take into consideration a hypothetical rework. We can always just make this tier list again in a year or 2 years' time, where relevant. So that being said as well, I really like the High Elves. I've always liked the High Elves. Well, actually, not always. I initially didn't, then I really did, and I still do. So I'm basically putting them in the same position I did before, as Nagaroth is definitely my favorite to play. I do like playing the Skaven High Elves, so they're going into S tier, and I've always loved playing as Tyrion, so he's going into S tier, and I've kind of gotten a bit more into the High Elves, if anything, since the last time I did this tier list. So I really enjoy Eltharion's campaign. Even though it's a little bit challenging having a split start position, I mean, you can always just choose not to and just pick one start position to go for. But I do think it's a good campaign. So I'm going to put that at S tier, but only barely, because I think that's an upgrade on what it was previously. As for Avalorn, not super fond of her faction mechanic, so I'm going to put her at A tier. Again, I really like the High Elves. And as for Imric, his start position kind of sucks a little bit, but his mechanics can compensate for it, because that area is filled with Chaos Dwarfs, fire resistant, but at least he can sort of mitigate that a fair bit. So I'm going to put him at A tier, but I reckon a different start position could have seen him at S tier. And then I'm still really not fond of Teclis' start position at all, or his particular campaign. I really think he could go from C tier, where he's going, C tier straight to S tier if he gets the Gelt treatment in the update that I'm assuming he'll get. Just basically copy paste that mechanic. It really should be more powerful for Teclis than it is for what's it called, for the Golden Order. So hopefully I'll be able to say in 2 years' time, yeah, Teclis is S tier, but right now the problems that he had 2 years ago are still problems now. Basically surrounded by either people he shouldn't conquer or by enemies that are not worth conquering, specifically Tzeentch. Going after Tzeentch's territory is super annoying because it's all red territory, so all you can really justify doing is taking out Tzeentch and then sort of giving the territory to Oxyotl, which I don't find that to be very interesting. So I really don't like his campaign. I just don't enjoy it whatsoever. Okay, then moving on to Khorne. So they've got 2 new Legendary Lords since I previously did this tier list. I put Scarbrand in S tier before, and he's going at S tier now. Everything that I liked about Khorne back then, I still like now. They've had a bit of a rework, and I pretty much like everything they changed about Khorne. It's just fucking great faction. Lots of fun. You can end up spending 4 hours on a single turn just because of how many enemies you can end up fighting, which just works in Khorne's favor. It really suits my playstyle. Even though, melee factions previously weren't really my jam. It's largely because melee was shit. But melee is so friggin' good with Khorne that I don't even notice the cheats, because they've got things that compensate for it, because I play on very hard battle difficulty. It's not so severe as it was in Warhammer 2. So I really enjoy playing as Khorne, as Scarbrand. And then as for the Skulltaker, I like, in theory, Skulltaker. I do enjoy the campaign a bit, but the problem with him is that it's too broken. Even after it got nerfed, it's still too broken. So I'm gonna put it at A tier because I think it's just too fucking broken. It's a super easy campaign, and everything that Scarbrand can do, this one can do as well. But I find that when I play as the Skulltaker now, I just kind of get bored really early because his power scales too quickly, basically. Just being able to teleport and get so ridiculously strong and just spawn out blood hosts like absolute crazy. It's fun for one campaign. It's very much like the Changeling, I suppose. Very fun for one campaign, and then it becomes like, well, what's the point in playing this campaign? It's just like, here's a campaign that's just so ridiculously, I'm strong, I'm a fucking god right from the get-go. And I think that, to an extent, that can be fun, but it's too far with him. So A tier with that, because I do enjoy it, but I think they just went too far with it. And then as for the challenges of Khorne with Arbal, I think they got the balancing kind of right with that one. So I'm going to put that one at S tier. So I would have put all of the Khorne factions in S tier, because I think they're all great, but I think it's just too overtuned with the with Skulltaker there. But if I was going to say which is my favorite race to play in Total War Warhammer 3, it has always been and is still Khorne. That's the faction I enjoy the most, which I never expected because it's the Chaos God I thought I aligned with the least. But who knows? Maybe it's the one I actually align with the most. Maybe Tzeentch was tricking me all along. Who knows? Because I actually don't like playing Tzeentch. Anyway, moving on to Kislev. So Kislev, no additional Legendary Lords, but they have had a rework in regard to 6.1. I think the rework was pretty good. I don't think it made them stronger as a faction because they lost a few things and then gained a lot of things. I'd say that Katerin is still my favorite faction to play out of Kislev. I'm going to put her at S tier. This is one of those campaigns that's actually quite challenging, but I enjoy the challenge because you've got the tools that you need to deal with it. Same thing with Kastalton. I think I put him at A tier before, but now I actually think he's S tier with the changes made to the Orthodoxy versus the Ice Court stuff, I think is much better. And it's stuff that scales really well for the late stage of the campaign. It kind of makes their earlier stage of the campaign a little bit more challenging, just a little bit. But yeah, so I'm going to put them at S tier. As for Boris Ursus, I can definitely appreciate a challenging campaign that puts you up against like Archaon really early on, but I just don't think it's as fun as these two here. So I'm going to put him at A tier. Now, as for Astankia, I can appreciate that they have changed it so that she is actually able to move back to Kislev now. I do appreciate that. But I really don't like her campaign. I really don't enjoy it. I think it's got a lot to do with her main campaign mechanic with the hexes. Whenever I play it, again, I just see Grom the Paunch's mechanic, and I just don't like dealing with like shitloads of banners. I recognize that it's a very powerful mechanic, but I don't personally find it fun. It feels like kind of like cheat codes. So it's just a bit on the boring side for me. So I'm going to put it at C tier. It's just not a campaign that I personally enjoy. But I can appreciate that they made some adjustments, and I'm sure other people appreciate that more than I do. But it's just, that campaign's not for me. Easy campaign for sure, just that's not what I'm looking for. Okay, then moving on to the Lizardmen. So Lizardmen, not much has changed for the Lizardmen. Like in terms of their own faction, nothing. But other factions have changed, which has changed their campaigns. So in the case of Hexawaddle, let's actually go. I haven't looked at the other tier list again for a little while. Where did I put Hexawaddle? So man, most of these went into A tier before. So I put Cult of Sotek at S tier. Yeah, I'd probably do that again. Although he does have to somewhat has to deal with Skulltaker. But the Cult of Sotek's definitely got the tools needed to be able to handle that, no problem, in my opinion, because it's a very powerful faction mechanic. And then, let's see, we put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right here. And, I put Hexawaddle at B tier. Yeah, that makes sense. I probably wouldn't adjust any of that. Actually, no, I think I would adjust it a little bit. Okay, so here's how I'd put it. I'd leave the Cult of Sotek at S tier. I do really enjoy playing this campaign. I know that the Lizardmen should really get a rework, even if it's just a bit of a light touch, especially to do with the Geomantic Web. But I feel like his sacrifice mechanic sort of compensates for that. I do think that Hexawaddle's position is still just a B tier campaign, just not really that enjoyable, so I'll put it back over there. Now, as for everyone else, most of them are going to remain in the same position, with the exception of Nakai. Now, I can't remember what the hell was going on with Nakai in October of 2023, whether or not he had his inability to recruit Kroxigors then, I'm not sure. But he definitely is able to recruit Kroxigors now, and I really enjoy his campaign. So I'm actually going to put him at S tier, which is the complete opposite of where I would have put him in Total War Warhammer 2, because it was one of my least favorite campaigns to play. But I really enjoy playing as Spirit of the Jungle. Often Cathay, doing your own thing, basically. So I do really like playing as Nakai. So I think I put him at A tier before, and now he's going up to S tier. Now, as for Itza, Itza being close to Skulltaker can be a little bit of a problem, but it's not really, because Itza's got Croak, so it's fine, basically. As for everyone else, I don't really have any change of opinion on them, so they're going into A tier. I really do like the Lizardmen. They have consistently been one of my top 5, top 10 favorite factions throughout the entirety of Warhammer 2 and Warhammer 3. But I do recognize that they could use a little bit of an update, just mainly to the Geomantic Web. And the funny thing is, I think they've got all the tools that they need to do that in Nakai's campaign. His campaign mechanic, in my opinion, is basically what the Geomantic Web should be providing, where he has these these various points that he gets from his vassal. I reckon these guys here should get something similar in regard to having boosted the Geomantic Web. The more that you boost up the Geomantic Web, the more those points you could spend. And each faction would have something different that they could spend them on. That's what I think, but that's not what this tier list is about. But that's what I would like to see. If they did that, I think that would basically fix all my issues with the Lizardmen. That I'd probably like to see some of their units recruited a little bit earlier, and some of the restrictions maybe eased up on a little bit, because I don't really like having to recruit to build 2 structures and to recruit one kind of tier 3 unit. So that would also be good for them. Things like the Temple Guard, I don't think they belong at tier 4. I think they should be at tier 3. I don't think they've actually changed that. I can't remember. But I usually don't recruit Temple Guard anyway. Even if I had played a Lizardmen campaign recently, that's not a unit that I check up on. But anyway, I do really like Lizardmen though. Okay, then moving on to Norsca. Okay, nothing's really changed for them, but it's about to. But I'm not going to take that into consideration. We can always come back to this another time. Except for Throg, the addition of Malachi McCasins into the campaign makes Throg's start position particularly painful because Air Force is basically something that Norsca is not particularly good at dealing with, especially if you're incentivized to recruit monsters that, again, have no missile units. And so dealing with your first primary enemy being Malachi McCasin, it's just a bad matchup for Throg. So previously, I thought his campaign was in a really good position. I actually quite enjoyed playing Throg, but now, not so much. So I think I put him at A tier before. Let me just double check that. So I put him at A tier before, because I really enjoyed him, at least compared to what it was in Warhammer 2. But now, less so. Malachi makes it just kind of painful. Like, I don't like going up against an Air Force and being like, well, I could throw javelins at them. That's basically all we've got to begin with. And you don't really have a choice. They're like your first enemy. And then as for Wulfric, I'd say it's pretty boring campaign. Hopefully he gets some adjustments to him with it. Well, we know they're going to get some rework done. So I'm going to put him at B tier. I think that's the same location I put him in before. Yeah, he was a B tier as well. Just nothing serious has changed with him. It's just not super interesting. Okay, so Nurgle. Nurgle's one of the factions that I actually put at D tier before with the Poxmakers of Nurgle. So that was Kugath Plaguefather. The other two weren't implemented into the game back then, so they won't be present here. So how have things changed for Kugath? Well, with his rework and with various other changes in his area, I think it's a lot more enjoyable to play as him. Is it the most enjoyable campaign? No. I'm going to put him at B tier. I'm going to put, what's it called, Tamarkan's campaign. I'm going to put him at A tier. I don't think he was quite worthy of S tier. When it comes to the Thrones of Decay campaigns, I definitely enjoyed Malachi McCasin and Whistleman and Nuln's campaign significantly more than his campaign, for sure. But it is fun. I do really enjoy it. A tier is not a bad place to be. And as for the Tallyman of Nurgle, what's it called? Epidemius. I think it's an okay campaign, pretty much on the same tier as Poxmakers of Nurgle. I'm going to put it at B tier. So Nurgle has had a significant improvement of where they were before. Obviously, these two weren't here, but him being here before, this is a massive improvement. So, in my opinion, the Nurgle rework was pretty good. Wasn't on the same tier as the Dwarfs or the Beastmen rework, but it was pretty good. Better than the Greenskin rework, because they went down a little bit. Okay, then we move on to the Ogres. So things have changed a fair bit for the Ogres. They've had a pretty substantial rework, and Golg Maneater, which I still can't say his name, because you guys know I don't need to go over this again. He's had an addition into the campaign with Omens of Destruction. So I really enjoy the Ogre rework. I think it was great. And every single one of them feel like an actual DLC character now. Whereas previously, even though they were DLC characters, because they're like a pre-order bonus for Warhammer 3, they didn't have their own unique faction mechanic. But they got the treatment that the Empire got. And, well, it's literally the exact same thing, essentially, for Goldtooth. Grease's Goldtooth essentially getting Reikland's campaign, which works for him. And you know what? A tier now. So I don't think that's where I put him before. Actually, let me just check. Where did I put him before? I put Scrag at A tier, and I had put... Where did I put Greasus before? I actually put him at C tier. So yeah, he's going up 2 places now, because I do quite enjoy playing as Greasus. Although, just a little bit of a caveat, he does have to usually deal with either Grimgor or Tamarkan fairly early on, so just... especially if you have to deal with Tamarkan, that's really not friggin' easy, because everything he's got like anti-large. But just be mindful of that. I do really enjoy playing as Greasus. This is a situation, if you end up going up against Tamarkan, this is where your new faction mechanic really bloody comes in handy to mitigate how powerful he will be. Scrag, pretty much in the same position that he was before, even though he's got an updated faction mechanic. I find that of the three Ogre Lords, his faction mechanic is kind of the least interesting. Mainly boosting spellcasters, which is fine, but it feels a little bit passive. So I'm still going to live in the same position he was before at A tier. And then as for Golg, well, I think his campaign is S tier because it's really quite unique. It's not like the Changelings campaign and where it's like, well, it's just a meme campaign. Whereas this is you're specifically doing what he really should be doing, which is acting as a mercenary. And the rewards for doing so are quite substantial. So I do really enjoy his campaign, especially because going around the world very quickly is very good for the ogres now, especially looking for pottery. The reason for that is because level 3 pottery gives you access to more camps. Camps are freaking amazing now, being able to just pick them up and put them down again with relative ease. His faction mechanic complements the rework perfectly, in my opinion. So I think it's an S tier campaign. Really enjoy playing as Golg. Maybe I'll do a premiere of him sometime soon because I'd really enjoy it. Let me know in the comments below if that's what you'd like me to see. If you'd like to see that from me, I mean. Okay, then Skaven. So not much has really changed for the Skaven. They've always, not always, but they have for a long time been one of my favorite factions, especially since the introduction of Icket Claw. But have they gotten any new units? No. Any new, anyone new in their area? Kind of. The Skrulk has to deal somewhat with Khorne, but being Skaven, you can kind of handle Khorne. They're not too difficult to deal with because you can just ambush them quite easily. Khorne's actually pretty bad at defending against ambushes. So it's not so bad for you. And again, they have to get through Itza, which actually kind of makes it easier for Skrulk, because if Itza ends up fighting against Skulltaker first, then you've got a bit more room to move. So it could go either way with him. So I'm going to put... I don't think I'm going to really change anything for the Skaven compared to what it was before. Still think that this is an S tier campaign. Same thing here and same thing there. The DLC Skaven are S tier campaigns. Really, really good, in my opinion. And I'm going to give Tzeentch a little bit more slack this time. I think I put him at B tier before, but I dislike him a little bit less now. So I'm going to put the rest of them at A tier. There's a possibility that the Skaven will get some degree of an update, because there's a hint towards there being possibly... Well, they said they would eventually add in Thanquol. And it would be good to see all three of these actually get a faction mechanic, just in the same way that the Empire got that for their starting legendary lords. So these ones here could potentially be more interesting later down the track, especially Skrulk, because Skrulk should have access to some sort of plague mechanic, being kind of like a... they brew plagues, just like Nurgle does. So it'd be interesting to see with that. Now, with Slaanesh, they haven't yet had their rework and their new legendary lords. So we know that Dekala is coming. As for what the FLC one is going to be, we're not entirely sure. I do quite like playing as Slaanesh, but they've kind of fallen behind a little bit. So I'm just not super fond of them. I think at the moment they sort of belong in B tier. I think I may have put them in A tier before. Let me just check. Yeah, I put them in A tier before, but because they've sort of just stayed still and done nothing, gained no benefit from any of the updates, I just think that they're less interesting, especially when compared to the other Chaos Gods. They've all had their DLC at this point, so I imagine that this will probably end up in A or S tier after the rework, assuming it's good. But for the time being, I think B tier is where they belong. Then as for the Tomb Kings, again, nothing has changed for them, and that's a problem, because I think that they are getting to the point of being quite boring. Whereas I really liked the Tomb Kings when they first came out, but since so little has changed for them in that amount of time, they're kind of they're just really falling behind. So I think that actually Khalida is the one I really dislike the most, to the point that I would actually put her in D tier. I really don't like playing her campaign. I hate her start position and her faction mechanics, and just don't enjoy it at all. So I'm going to put her at D tier. As for the other three, I think that Khemri and followers of Nagash are the most interesting. And Followers of Nagash being maybe slightly more interesting than Khemri just because of that extra starting army. But I'd probably put both of them at B tier and then put Cathay at C tier. Just comparing that to where they were last time though. Looks like I put Cathay at B tier, and yeah, I put those two at A tier, and where to put Khorne at C tier. So even though nothing's really changed for them, I think that's part of the problem. I just don't really find them fun anymore because the factions that end up in S tier, which as you can see, there are a lot more factions in S tier than there were before. When there's something that is like S tier, you can't just put everything in S. If everything is S tier, then nothing is S tier, basically. So when other factions get a bit of a boost, factions that have remained doing nothing kind of fall down a little bit in terms of the ranking. But overall, we can see there's definitely more in S tier. But yeah, just not as interesting as it was before because they've stayed still. You know, if everything gets a little bit more interesting except for one thing, then they go down to D tier, basically. Okay, then we move on to Tzeentch. Now, Tzeentch has had a bit of a rework, but I've never really... I just don't really like playing as Tzeentch. So when it comes to the Changeling campaign, I get the point of it. It's like this sort of memey debug campaign where you're just sort of playing on cheats. And they've made it a little bit more challenging in that if the Changeling gets wiped out, as in your army, all of your cults get discovered. But, man, whoever loses the Changeling, it's so hard to lose the guy because you can hide in your own territory everywhere, ambush everywhere. You've just got so many tools at your disposal, and you're just memeing on everyone. And it just doesn't really feel like a proper Total War campaign, which is fine for a lot of people. I think a lot of people do really enjoy playing as the Changeling. Me personally, it was like a one-and-done campaign, kind of like the Skulltaker. However, I definitely enjoyed Skulltaker way more than the Changeling, and I would definitely go back to play the Skulltaker again, whereas the Changeling I would probably never touch again, unless, you know, something changes for Tzeentch, like they got some more legendary lords or something. I'm not entirely sure. But I'm going to put him in the same place as I did last time. I think it's C tier. As for Kairos Fateweaver, there have been some improvements to him. Let me just see where I put him last time. Put him at B tier. That's probably where I'd put him now, because I feel like, yeah, you can sort of auto-teleport away from your start position, and that's okay. There's some sort of more lore-friendly places to go, and their cult rework was definitely good. I just don't know. I just can't really justify putting him in A tier because I personally don't enjoy playing as Kairos. Whenever I play as him, I'm just like, ugh, I just don't want to play it. So I think B tier is fine for him. But I know a lot of people are probably going to disagree with it. I just don't find him fun. It is what it is. Okay, so then we move on to the Vampire Coast, another faction that kind of just hasn't moved anywhere, which is kind of a bad thing. With other factions becoming more interesting, the ones that haven't moved at all become less interesting. Because it's all relative, right? I mean, if there's only one faction in the game, then that faction is the most interesting, right? But when there is quite a lot of factions that have become more interesting, again, the ones that go nowhere become less interesting. So, as for, what's it called, Sartosa, nothing's changed, so back into D tier with her, which is where she left last time. Basically, a lower version of the D tier. Maybe I should have had an E tier, but I don't think that's fair. Still just D tier for her. I do like playing as the Drowned and the Dreadfleet more than the Awakened. So I'm going to put both of these two at B tier, and I'm going to put the Awakened at C tier. I also think that part of the thing that makes me not really like the Vampire Coast that much anymore is kind of the line of sight issues with their low tier or just across the board. Line of sight issues in Warhammer 3 and the changes to the maps being like essentially like as if it had been bombarded with howitzers everywhere, with like craters all over the place, and tree acne doesn't complement the Vampire Coast very much. In terms of their low-tier gun infantry, it's just really kind of difficult to make them do their job. And I just don't think that they're that much fun these days. So that's why I'm putting them, the highest ones being at B tier. Then the Vampire counts. I think I actually like the Vampire counts a little bit more than I did previously. Maybe I was a bit soured on them back in 2023. I think I put the Sylvania at A tier, which I think I'm going to put them back there. Actually, I did say I'd make a distinction here with Vlad and Isabella. I personally prefer playing as Vlad over Isabella. I mean, you get both in the campaign, essentially. But I know a little bit more about the vampire accounts now than I did back then in terms of how they are implemented into Warhammer 3. And I like both Vlad and Isabella as legendary lords. Now, the thing is, if you want to get both Vlad and Isabella as a legendary lord in the game to play as, you can't play as Sylvania. Because the way you got to do it is that you have to play as one of these three, you have to wipe out Vlad, and then you have to revive him. When you do that, Isabella comes back as a legendary lord. So I'm going to put Vlad at A tier, because I do enjoy his campaign, but I'm going to put Isabella at B tier. So we've got Sylvania at A and B tier. Maybe I should have done that with Vlad's face and Isabella's face. I do prefer to start as Vlad, but I want to put the distinction that I think that I enjoy both of them the same, sort of. But what I would do now is if I wanted to play as Vlad and Isabella, which is what I usually want to do, I would actually play as one of these and wipe him out, revive him, confederate him. Because that way Isabella comes back as a legendary lord and a legendary hero. It's a bit weird with the vampire counts. So I think I put the Drakenhof Conclave at like C tier or something last time because I really didn't enjoy him. But now that I know these like little quirks with the vampire counts, I actually quite like playing as Manfred. And especially considering he's got the Tomb King's mechanic. Even though nothing has changed for Manfred, my perception of him has changed just because of knowledge that I've gained throughout playing the game. So I've like learnt to appreciate him more, even though nothing has changed for him. Now, as for the other vampire accounts, I don't really like starting as either of these two, so I'm going to put them both at B tier, and we'll see how that's changed. So that's a bit of a wonky one there. So yeah, I put both of them in A tier before. And then, let's see, so I put both of those at B tier, so they haven't changed. But yeah, I put Drakenhof Conclave at C tier previously. But now I'd probably use this as my go-to Vlad, defeat him, revive him, so that I can play as both Vlad and Isabella as legendary lords, and have Isabella as a legendary hero. I think that's how I would go about. Plus, you've got a lot of incentive to go back to Drakenhof when you're playing as Manfred, since it boosts his effects of the Books of Nagash. So yeah, just needed a bit of knowledge on the exploits, I suppose, with the game in order to appreciate the vampire accounts, which is kind of how I've generally played the vampire accounts. It's just not played as intended and cheese the shit out of the game. The more cheese I find, the more I find I enjoy them. And also another thing to keep in mind is that since then, they've like massively increased the cap on the amount of Winds of Magic that you can store in any particular army. So, remember when previously, like, the cap was 100? So that was ridiculous. I'm not sure if that was implemented before or after Shadows of Change. I just can't remember. But yeah, I do enjoy the vampire accounts a bit more now. Then, Warriors of Chaos. Not much has really changed for them. I still think they're in a fantastic position, so I don't think we need to change much. I'm going to put them pretty much in the same position. Love playing as Archaon, love playing as Be'lakor because they can confederate. Personally, I prefer Be'lakor over Archaon because there's no limit to the amount of gifted armies that he has in any of his armies, allowing for Kholek to get his true Doomstack of full Shaggoth. One of the main reasons I like to play is the Shadow Legion. Also, being able to teleport around. The manifestations of the Dark Gods are, in my opinion, with Be'lakor, somewhat better than some of the monogod manifestations. And then everyone else, they're still A tier because they're when you play as any of these, you don't get to play as any of the other legendary lords. And I find that these campaigns are a little bit more one-dimensional than these two here. Basically, if you want to play as all of the Warriors of Chaos, you play as them. If you're specifically looking to play as one legendary lord for the Warriors of Chaos, you can play as one of them specifically. I do think that Kholek should have some ability to at least confederate these guys, even if not them, since he is undivided. But whatever, it's nitpicking with that. But overall, I think that the Warriors of Chaos are in a great place. Okay, then Wood Elves. So, with the Wood Elves, I still think that Taliesin is S tier for fun, because I really like doing like a This is Total War campaign with him, which is funny because I think that mechanic was still in back in October of 2023. Let me just check that. Yeah, I put it back then. Because, yeah, I just enjoy his ability to have free armies the more you declare war on people. It's fun. Not for everyone, but it's fun for me. Then, as for the others, I think it's pretty much the same positions as I put on last time. This would be A tier. I really do enjoy... would I even go so far as to put it S tier campaign? You know what? I think I will. I'll put that one at S tier. I really enjoy playing as the Sisters of Twilight. Just very different campaigns, I suppose. And these ones here, I'd put them both at A tier. I really do enjoy the Wood Elves in Warhammer 3. I didn't like them so much in Warhammer 2, but their rework turned out to be much better in Warhammer 3 than it was for 2, in my opinion. So yeah, I had previously put them at B tier. So that's a faction that, even though they haven't had any updates, I just feel better about them now than I did previously. So that's the new new update. I'm gonna have to zoom out on this a little bit just to get it all in there. So looks like it's pretty top heavy, which is what you want to see. Looks like about half of the factions in the game are in either S or A tier, and I mean just looking at it from a visual point of view, if we have a look at what I ranked previously, it was maybe a little bit less than half. Just a little bit. Again, I'm not going to bother counting this. You guys let me know if you want to bother counting it. But overall, it seems like we've got way more in S tier than before. And it seems like a lot of the ones that were in A tier have been sort of upgraded to S tier. And there's not as many in D tier as previous. Yeah, there were 5 in D tier before, and now there's only 4 in D tier because 1 got downgraded and 2 got upgraded. So that's movement of a... Wait, was Alberic in D tier before? No, it wasn't. So yeah, 3 got upgraded and 2 got downgraded. That's what happened. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely think that Alberic is worthy of D tier now. Alberic has always been the short end of the stick with Bretonnia, but the addition of Skulltaker really doesn't benefit him whatsoever in terms of his campaign, unless of course you're looking to suffer in a campaign, in which case maybe you think it's great. Some people just enjoy suffering, and that's totally fine, but I just don't enjoy it. But yeah, so that's my position there with these. Again, it's all completely subjective. Let me know in the comments below whether you agree or disagree with my picks based on your own personal opinions. But that's my pick for which campaigns I think are the most fun in 2025 for Total War Warhammer 3. And this, of course, will change over time again. Maybe we'll cover this again in 2027. We'll see. Anyway, that's the end of this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to check out Manscaped. Link will be in the description and pinned comment. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time. Later, guys.